All right. Welcome to another edition of DT Live. Already we've got Big Pod here on the conference call. Climby, how you doing?
Doing good.
All right.
Hello.
Your audio needs to come up a little bit.
Okay. All right, is that better?
Yeah, a lot better.
All right.
And just another Sunday morning here. I got a very large coffee from McDonald's. I felt like I needed it. So normally I just get a small, but went for the big cup today.
Nice.
Turn my audio up a little bit too. How's the audio sound in the chat? You guys that are already hanging out in the chat and stream sound okay? Got a few people already in the chat. A lot of people here early. Lamarck, Waleed, Ghost, Richard, Paul stopped by for a second. Said good morning. He may come back later. Yeah, Hink was around. Mark, Q1 Fiend. Yu-Gi-Oh! Says hi. Red Moth, come on, man. I'm waiting for you to do another video with Surge. Well, I'm trying to take a break, so I'm not doing anything this week. I know Surge wants to do some more Slackware videos, but those things take hours to record and edit. So don't expect it anytime in the next few days for sure. So I know Surge really wants to do that, but you know what? YouTube is available for everyone. Surge can make a video himself and put it up. He doesn't need me. I mean, he's the Slackware master, really, not me. I'd just be the guy recording it, so. All right, and Silent Robot has joined us. So what's everybody been up to this week?
Well, I'm finally off of Vanilla Gnome.
Yeah, Vanilla Gnome. You know, I thought about doing that. I couldn't bring myself to try that out, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the Ubuntu Budgie 18.10 now. Gotta say, Budgie out of the box, way nicer desktop than Vanilla Gnome.
Yes, it is. Yeah, Budgie is very nice. It's one of the desktop environments I'm most interested in as far as if I was going to run a full desktop environment. I really like where Budgie's heading or was heading. Hopefully they're still heading somewhere now that Ike is not around. I don't know what's going to happen with the Budgie desktop environment.
Yeah.
So hopefully people continue the development of it because it was really nice. It was really GNOME kind of done the right way. It's what GNOME 3 should have been. So
I like Budgie as well.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still GNOME 3
Yeah.
first, but Budgie is okay too.
And Ubuntu Budgie is, you know, if I was going to run one of the official Ubuntu flavors, I'd probably run Ubuntu Budgie or maybe Lubuntu because I like lightweight. But Ubuntu Budgie, I really like what those guys are doing. Matter of fact, I support them over at Patreon, even though I don't use their distro. But, you know, I try to throw a few bucks to guys that deserve it, I think are doing good work. People like the Ubuntu Budgie team, Elementary. Another distro I probably would never run myself, but, you know, I think it's important work what those guys are doing.
Yeah, I was actually trying Ubuntu 18.10 out earlier, and I found it interesting that they switched over to the Calamares installer.
Yeah. Lubuntu did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd been talking about that for a while. And the Ubiquity installer that Ubuntu's been using forever, I guess it hasn't really seen much development lately. So I think that's why they were switching to Calamares.
Kubuntu also switched to Calamares.
Mhm.
I don't know, I believe it was in 17.10 already. I know that in 18.4 Kubuntu is on Calamares. But
Mhm.
it really looks a lot like Ubiquity. So a lot of people miss it.
Yeah. Well, the Ubiquity installer was nice, simple, easy to use, but so is the Calamares installer. I mean, I'm fine with either one of them, to be honest. As far as installers, they're pretty good. I like both those installers better than the one in SUSE, the Anaconda installer. I can't stand that installer.
I like how it looks and how it feels, but just it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, even how it looks and feels, I've got some problems with that. Like, sometimes you click a button and you think you're ready to continue to the next screen, but no, you have to click it a second time because it didn't like the password you chose, for example. But it doesn't.
Security.
Yeah, but it doesn't really give you any information on the screen. Hey, you need to click OK a second time just to be, it just the
On
little
the
things.
Bottom of the screen, it shows you information.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool.
Good morning.
How's
Good
everyone
morning,
doing?
Dan. Yeah, doing
Yeah,
good.
Doing well.
No, just relaxing. Probably won't do much today after this chat. I'm gonna watch a little football.
Yeah, that's good.
And we'll see how that goes.
Hey Dan.
Yeah. So, Robot, what have you been up to?
I've been playing with DaVinci Resolve 15 on Antergos most of the day.
Oh, okay.
I've got a
And-
new card, so I've been playing with the 41057 drivers. And they're
Oh.
very good.
Okay.
Very, very good.
Awesome. So, how do you like DaVinci Resolve?
It's an amazing piece of software.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
proprietary, but, use whatever tools suit your purpose, I believe. So
Yeah.
that's my non-linear editor of choice.
Mine
Yeah, I
as
should
well.
check it out. Yeah.
It's extremely powerful.
Yeah.
For free software, it's really good.
It's probably the best there is at the moment.
I'm actually using the 41057 NVIDIA drivers. I'm using the binary driver off of NVIDIA's website on 18.10 Budgie, and it works great.
Oh, right. It's in 1810 now. Cool.
Yeah, because it's not in the PPAs yet. They haven't updated it.
Yeah,
It's
you
on
wouldn't
your-
grab that
oh.
yourself, huh?
Yeah.
So what
And,
driver is 1810 shipping with? What NVIDIA driver are they shipping with? They still on what,
Yeah,
390, isn't it?
They're
96?
still at 390 unless you
96.
add the PPA, and then it's 396.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, gonna jump off for a second and get into either my Ubuntu or Arch install since I'm on a Windows right now.
No, not a problem. We'll be on for a couple hours. All right.
Yeah, I took the plunge and I treated myself.
Yeah, I was actually having issues in Ubuntu 1804 and 1810 where if I had an XOR config file with the NVIDIA drivers, you would just get a black screen after login. But I
Yeah.
found that using the NVIDIA binary drivers, at least the new 410 ones, I haven't had that problem at all. It just works.
Mhm.
That's interesting because Dreaming Wolf was mentioning that on Biddle last
Yeah.
night.
Yep.
Or this morning, I should say.
Yeah, there's
And
nothing like
also-
installing a new graphics driver and then rebooting to a black screen and then realizing, well, you got to revert back to the old one.
Well, I was actually talking to Rocco this morning in the Telegram because he was having some screen tearing issues with KDE Neon
Yeah.
with the I think 396 drivers, and I told him to try the 410 drivers from NVIDIA's website, and he tried that, and that fixed all of the screen tearing issues too.
No, that's good. Because that's always been a problem. If you have an NVIDIA card, KDE is a mess as far as the screen tearing and artifacts and all that. And people will tell you to tweak it, turn VSync off, on, whatever. Go into the NVIDIA settings manager and,
Yeah,
tick this
flipping.
box and turn that box off. But and none of it really solves the problem completely.
Right.
And it's strange because I don't know why KDE has so many problems like that because GNOME really has no issues. I mean, I'm not a fan of the GNOME desktop environment, but I don't have screen tearing when I run it. Same with XFCE, I don't have the kind of problems I have with Plasma.
Screen tearing when I was using GNOME 3.30.1 in Arch.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was a mutter thing I was missing or something, but I just did the full force composition thing in NVIDIA settings. And
Yeah, it's going to be a difference with the compositors. Even running something like OpenBox with Compton, I don't have any issues with that. So
Right.
something with I guess with KWin. So
Yeah, must be weird.
yeah. Well, I didn't do any hopping this week. I knew I wouldn't make the Big Daddy show Saturday night because I wasn't planning on being around. So I didn't do Vanilla GNOME, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why put yourself through the pain?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. I mean, if you have to, you can live in anything, but still. Why
The
would you
worst
want
part
to?
was trying to use the Epiphany browser.
Oh, yeah, I forgot they mentioned that you had to use Epiphany. You couldn't install Firefox or Chrome. Huh?
Well, I tried and I imposed that on myself, and it wasn't like when I first did it, it was bad. Like YouTube videos wouldn't even play half the time, and then they released an update that fixed a lot of that. But I still had weird issues where I would be in the middle of a video,
What?
sound would just cut out, and I'd have to refresh the page and get it to.
Well, you know, a good challenge instead of
Seems
doing all these
alright.
distro challenges
Their
would be
hardware
browser
is-
challenges.
So,
Yeah.
Like everybody, you know, switch to Midori for a week or Brave or, you know, some of the Water Fox. All right, looks like Paul's trying to join today. Hopefully it's having less audio issues. Last week was kind of strange what was going
Horrific
on.
audio this time.
Yeah.
Am I squealing like a pig?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
good
that's
today,
better,
Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bring the volume up a little bit though. You're kind of soft, but yeah, no weirdness today.
Okay. Hang on.
All right. Yeah, I've been getting the urge to do some distro hopping on my main machine. Of course, I mean, I hop. I've got machines I can hop on, but I thought about, you know, actually living in something other than Manjaro as far as producing the channel. You know, wiping out Manjaro, moving on to something else. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but I've had the urge. Been thinking about it, so.
A floating window environment.
Yeah, maybe. You know, because I'm such a minimalist, you know, make myself maybe live in a full desktop environment again for a little while. I mean, I did Plasma for about a month early in the year. I thought about maybe doing GNOME, or I mentioned I really like what Ubuntu Budgie's doing. Maybe when 18.10 comes out in a couple of weeks, maybe hopping to Ubuntu Budgie and, you know, living in it for a month or two. See how I get along with that.
When I first booted Ubuntu 18.10 on this AMD laptop, I did NeoFetch, and then it reported that it was only using 420 megabytes of RAM. And I was really surprised that KDE Plasma is, you know, it's getting lower and lower in terms of RAM usage.
Yeah.
Yeah, Plasma's awesome.
Yeah.
And GNOME, I hear the recent versions of GNOME are not quite as bad as they used to be. I think they're starting to hear from, you know, the Linux community, because we're not really like the Windows community. We're really anti-bloat, and they were getting a little out of control, as heavy as those particular desktop environments were. So,
Does anyone? I'm on Antagos at the moment with the Budgie desktop, and for the life of me, I cannot make a window stay on top of others.
is there no option to pin a window always on top of everything else?
There's nothing that I can
Okay,
find.
you see, that would be kind of a deal breaker with me. It's one of the things I liked about using something like OpenBox is, you know, you could always make a window on
There
top.
is
Also,
on Ubuntu Budgie, I can do that.
Yeah, Ubuntu Budgie's different. I think the version Antagos brings down is an Antagos meta package.
Mhm.
yeah, because I need my window manager to be able to always be on top. I also need it to get rid of all the decorations, the window decorations, when I need to.
Right.
And it would be great if there was a handy keyboard command to do that.
Yeah.
I know KWin can do all that.
Yep.
XFCE's window manager, I think, does all that. I don't know. Maybe Budgie's just not mature enough to do some of that yet.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
It feels so much better being on
All right.
Linux.
Yeah, maybe Ubuntu, Derek?
Yeah. XFCE, I'm sure I would get along with. I don't think I would have much of an issue with that at all. Maybe do, you know, if I did XFCE and I wanted to do like one of the Ubuntu's coming up, I probably wouldn't do Xubuntu though. I would probably do Ubuntu Studio.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanna go go with Mate. That would be my.
Pretty light.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like.
Of course, if I install Ubuntu Studio, then I'm almost obligated to go ahead and try to figure out how to use the Jack audio server, something I've been avoiding. So-
Even though for you it should be probably something. you should learn.
The studio is a good choice. It sets
Hey,
it
Ricky.
up for you mostly.
Yeah, Breadmoth, thanks for the super chat. He had a question. What is everyone's thoughts about the Librem 5 phone pure Linux alternative?
I
So
love
the-
the thought.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like it. It's just I want to know more about it before I make my final opinions on it.
Yeah. Librem as a company and everything they're doing, yeah, I completely support. We need more. We definitely need a real Linux phone for one thing. I
Yeah,
really want
we
to see
do.
more. I really want to see more open hardware out there, not just phones, but computers, laptops. Recently, I know they're doing their little USB key, the Librem key. I don't know
Yep.
if you guys have checked. You know, that looks like a really neat piece of equipment. I thought about actually purchasing one of those. I may do that soon. Yeah,
What's a Librem key?
let me pull up their
Kinda
website
like
if
a
I can.
YubiKey.
Yeah, it's basically like a YubiKey.
Security thing.
Yep.
Really
like
good, but
Two-factor authentication, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
my two
And you-
factories with Google.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't remember what their website is. It's Purism, of course. I'm just looking for Librem. It's Purism. Yeah, it's a USB. Let's see if I can pull up the browser. I actually didn't get this scene ready this morning in OBS. I'm not sure how this will look, but that's the Librem key if you guys are watching the stream. That's a USB security token to make encryption, key management, tamper detection convenient. Basically, yeah, it's a YubiKey.
Yep.
Oops. I just hit the intro. All right. Good time as any. So.
I was on Big Daddy last night and doing the challenge. I got Ubuntu 18.10 running on my laptop over here.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Serge is in the chat. I can help you install Gentoo on a spare hard drive with the window manager of your choice and all your favorite apps. Well, I'm sure I could get Gentoo installed myself. As far as living in Gentoo and producing the channel, I don't know if that's something I want to do. I like things that are a little more straightforward these days.
I
Gentoo.
don't think Gentoo would have much of a purpose for multimedia and stuff.
Well, yeah, that would be the thing. As you know, I would have to make sure I would have to compile probably FFmpeg and OBS and things to my liking. Of course, I'm going to need Infink support, and to go through all that. Where I could install something like if I wanted to hop, I could install something like Ubuntu Studio, and all that's just ready to go. So
Yeah.
it'd save me hours of work, which I don't have hours, so not these days. So.
Is my audio still low?
It's a little low, but we can hear you. It's not as bad as when you first joined, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
All right.
it's not bad.
I
Yeah,
can't
Johan
think
said
of-
that intro is good to test the bass on your speakers. Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
to on my computer, so I'm using my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I figure out how to turn up my mic on the phone.
Yeah, it's still a little low there, Paul. So you're using the mic on the headphones, your
Yes.
earbuds, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Meme Computer Tips says I can't decide what distro I'm going to use. Just pick something. I mean, chances are, if you're like any of us, you're not going to stay on something long anyway. You're going to hop to something else within a few weeks. So,
Sounds like me.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Serge,
about two
I can
weeks.
do it in several steps. I guess the Gentoo install. Yeah, I mean, I can, but I'm not going to do that. It's not something that interests me. I don't have that much time, Serge, to play with Gentoo on an extra drive.
Anybody try Hackman Linux?
Hackman? Yeah.
Me and DT have tried it. I mean, it's a really good operating system. Really good.
I got through the install, but I can't get it to boot up. It's wanting to boot with the ISO. Try to
Yeah.
convert it.
Yeah. And in the chat, Red Bravo Hi, Derek. That vacation lasted long. No, I told you guys I'd make an exception to join you guys Sunday morning for this chat. But other than that, I've tried to avoid YouTube. I've done a pretty good job.
That's
And
good. You deserve a break every once in a bit, for sure.
And once we end this chat, I probably won't be around again until Thursday. So.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You need a break.
Now, that said, I'm actually working on some stuff. I was trying to get a website put together finally. One of the things I was trying to do, I mentioned I eventually need to do something about hosting all my videos somewhere other than YouTube. So what I've been doing the last couple of days is spending a lot of time ripping all my videos off of YouTube, getting them on a hard drive, which, you know, I didn't realize how long that would take. I have made, you know, in a little under a year, I've made 326 videos. Average runtime is nearly half an hour for each video. So that took a long time.
Yeah.
So I got all of those ripped from YouTube finally, and then I went ahead and uploaded them to an S3 bucket using Amazon S3. So I've got all that somewhere else now, and I'll eventually put up a site. So
Are you thinking like PeerTube?
I thought about doing PeerTube, but I don't think I will. It seemed a little more involved. Plus, PeerTube, I couldn't use something like the S3 storage with it. I think I actually have to host it, store it all in a SQL database. So,
From what I heard, you have to pay for storage on.
yeah, and storage costs for as much video as I have already, not to mention what I'll create, in the coming months or years. It's just going to be astronomical. So S3 storage was the only thing that really made sense because it's pretty cheap what Amazon offers.
I saw
Guys, can I ask something?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone know what to type in kill all to kill VirtualBox?
Yep, kill all VirtualBox. Kill all, one word, space VirtualBox, and it should kill it. If that doesn't work, can you see the window on your screen? The VirtualBox window.
No process found.
Okay.
And I see the window.
Okay.
It's frozen.
Open a terminal and type all one word xkill, and you'll see an X appear on your screen.
Yeah.
Then click that window, and it'll go boom.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All
I
right.
did do that so many times in Vanilla GNOME for apps that minimized the system tray because I didn't have a system tray to actually close.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a million ways you could kill a process that's out of control. You could have opened up HTOP. Then I think it's F9 to start killing processes in HTOP.
You can use pkill as well if you know the process ID.
Yeah.
I will say one thing. I really do like the direction Mozilla is taking Firefox in terms of privacy and security. I like the direction Firefox is going.
Yeah.
Because they said in an article they're taking bold steps to help with that issue.
Mm-hmm. Now, Serge posted a link in the chat for me, Gentoo-studio.org. I have actually never heard of Gentoo Studio. It's a Gentoo Linux professional audio workstation. Wow. I will definitely bookmark that, because I may check that out. I didn't realize they had a version of Gentoo geared toward like audio professionals. Let me bookmark that. I'm going to read that later. Thanks for that link, Serge.
From what I know, Serge has been in the Linux community for a very long time.
He is definitely one of the more active members of the YouTube Linux community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's a walking encyclopedia of information.
Oh,
if you need to know anything about Gentoo and Slackware for sure, yeah, just get with Serge. All right.
Any news in Linux community?
I have not checked out anything as far as the news. I guess I could pull up a news feed and see
I was
what's
actually
going.
waiting for today, so I didn't check anything.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I've hung out a little bit on Reddit the last couple of days. I don't remember anything, any big news going on. Yeah, nothing really.
Facebook
Fedora,
news as usual.
Fedora's beta, that was big news. Ubuntu's beta.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it's basically.
have Fedora beta having one of my VMs.
Yeah. And that's going to suck up all the news the next couple of weeks. Is I mean, when
Yeah.
Ubuntu has its releases, that's going to be just huge news.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, Fedora, boom, Fedora 29. So
The one thing I noticed about the Ubuntu beta, I looked all over the LXQT environment. I cannot find for the life of me how to update the thing. I'm thinking that with betas, you don't get to do any updating until the full version comes out.
what are you talking about updating? You can't just open a terminal and sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade?
I tried that, but it told me, but from what it said, it told me that everything was updated. So I'm guessing everything automatically updated when I installed the ISO.
Yeah.
Well, if you have
Yeah,
the latest daily,
it's
then
part
probably
of the
yeah.
installer.
If you tick that box in the installer to install the
Yeah.
updates while you install, then you should be up to date.
I don't think
Oh,
Ubuntu
okay.
has that in the Calamares installer,
Yeah,
but
it's not. Yeah.
It's
but
not there.
if you're pulling down the latest daily, you probably don't have any updates.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of
They have
development.
Discover, for if you're looking for a GUI manager, you could use Discover or Muon.
Hold on just
Man.
1 second.
On any Debian-based system, Synaptic, I don't know.
Yeah, you could install
Synaptic's
that.
not everybody's favorite, but I quite like it. So
Just a little bit of news. I saw Google is working on Apple's Magic Trackpad to work on Linux. For those who have Macs and want that to work, that'll be a good thing.
yeah, I've actually never owned a Mac. I'm not sure if I purchased an Apple product. I'm not sure if I would wipe out the Mac OS on it though and
You
install
can't
something.
wipe it out. You can't wipe it out. You must you must use a program to make it work partially. Aside Mac, you must
Yeah.
install Linux. You can't have Mac totally out.
Yeah. They allow you to dual boot though.
Yeah, it's dual booting basically.
Mm-hmm. All right. Looks like Ben is joining us. Alistair's also joining us. Good morning, guys.
Good
or
morning.
afternoon, or good evening, or wherever you're at.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Hey, President Arms, how you doing?
I'm good, Ricky. How are you, mate?
I'm doing good.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
looking a little bit at Google News, some of the big stories.
Oh.
Other than the distro releases, the beta releases,
Derek,
over at ZDNet.
can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
All right, I had a
Hey,
question.
the big news, though, first of all, this is shocking news. Linux now dominates Azure. And that's the big news. So.
Yeah, that's big news.
Wow.
It isn't actually something really
In your
weird.
face, Microsoft.
Why it's so funny and stuff. The Azure is a platform for servers. Basically, they allow you to install Linux, allow you to install Windows, and because Linux is so much, let's call it, better on certain stuff, on servers, sure you're gonna install on Azure Linux, because if you think anything you would want Windows server, you're gonna have in your own server closet.
Right.
I know people who have Windows server boxes, but they would never go for Azure version. Why? Because those stuff that you have on a Windows server, you can't use over the internet. Either they are too important, or latency would make it useless.
Yes. of
For
course.
example, Active Directory is one thing. you don't really wanna use it over the internet because it's basically all the logins stuff like that is handled by the Active Directory. Or if you have if some many companies use Windows Server to have Adobe Media Encoder for encoding server, again you can't have it on Azure because it's too much power consumption, too much system resource consumption. You want to have it right there so you can actually access your own videos at speed of 10 gigabit and stuff like that. And for what Azure is, Linux is much better.
Hmm.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Looks like some other Microsoft news. Microsoft is about to kill Skype 7, aka Skype
Oh,
Classic.
snap.
Come on, when they will kill Skype, because Skype is so useless.
I mean,
I was about to say we have so many other
I
options.
don't even use
Yeah.
Skype anymore. It's like,
they're about to kill Skype Classic.
Yeah.
Every time
I remember
talk
me and
about
my
it,
friends used it while we were playing games, like
That's what
5
Skype
years
is.
ago.
yeah.
You know, this was my thing when they bought GitHub. I told you guys, I was like, think of every company that Microsoft has acquired over the past couple of decades, and every new company they've ever bought and acquired, they've kind of run into the ground, and it was going to be the same with GitHub. And I mentioned, look at what they've done with Skype. You know, Skype was great at one time, but then really, since Microsoft,
Skype was actually is the problem. Microsoft Skype is just run out of its lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah.
It wanted to be too much of a business platform, and yes, on a business platform it is good, but there are so much more involved
Other
programs, even from Microsoft, that you can use to communicate with people around the world.
Yeah.
So,
And there's too much competition, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, Ben?
Oh, I woke up at 7 this morning. Was a slow wake up, but even though it's 11:30, I'm still not fully awake.
Just splash some cold water on your face, and you'll be
I'll
fine.
probably do that after the show, but yeah, I'm probably gonna end up having to do that because
Yeah. Go get you some coffee, Ben. That's why Silent Robot is not with us. He says, "Be right back, making coffee." Smiley face.
well, the problem is I've
Frozen
tried
coffee.
coffee, Derek, and no matter what flavor I try, for some reason it just doesn't resonate well in my mouth. So.
It's not supposed to taste good, Ben. You drink it for the effect.
Absolutely.
I'm probably going to end up doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it does, however, it does taste nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like bourbon. Nobody likes how bourbon tastes. You drink it for the effect, though.
Yeah, I hear you.
I have a plaque in my kitchen that says no coffee.
And John
no
says
work.
take a cold shower. I'm like, oh my god.
That will wake you up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the funny thing.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Funny thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben.
And Mr. Jiffy says he stayed up all night, learning different remote exploits.
Yeah, GFY there. He loves Parrot security as far as a distro, so he likes all those penetration testing utilities.
Speaking of distros,
Mhm.
Gentoo has gotten so complex and frustrating that I'm finally just kicking the can and saying, okay, screw this. This is too much work.
Yeah.
Here's an idea, Ben. Instead of hanging out with Gentoo, why don't you go hang out with Arch?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, Arch is
Yeah. Well, I tell you, you're going to get fed up with anything if you stick with it long enough.
Yeah,
I've
I've
been-
stuck with it since Ubuntu 11.04 days.
Yeah.
And I gotta
So-
tell you,
7 years.
yeah, I'm tired of it at this point.
Because I ran the Ubuntu LTS 1604
Yeah.
on this machine for a couple of years. And after a while, I was fed up with the way Ubuntu did things. So then, you move to something else, Arch. Then you live on that for a while. You get fed up with the way Arch does things, and you move to something else. You know.
Kevin
And
says-
you're always looking for this utopia, this magical Linux land where everything just works, and there's not one,
I'm,
unfortunately.
I've tried, I'm kind of the same way there, Kevin. I've been jumping back and forth to Gentoo, and I'm not happy with it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, quite frankly, it's just it's not giving you that sense of satisfaction because, quite frankly, it's just too much compiling anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, earlier in the stream, I mentioned, when Ubuntu 18.10 comes out, I may hop over to Ubuntu Studio 18.10 just because I'm itching to hop to something, and I may try Ubuntu Studio out since it's.
I would not recommend hopping to Gentoo, Derek. It's not a
No, Gentoo was not where I was hopping to.
I would not recommend it, dude. It's bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
living in Gentoo is not worth it.
Mhm.
By the way, Derek, I figured out how to update on this thing. My computer's fully updated.
Mhm.
All I had to do was sudo apt
Yeah.
upgrade. It did it.
But getting back to the Ubuntu Studio thing, let me tell you some things that Ubuntu will do better than Arch, for example, having spent a lot of time on Arch over the years. So if I wanted to, for example, set up the Jack audio server and use Jack instead of Pulse Audio, I would need a real-time kernel or a low-latency kernel. Ubuntu Studio is going to have that ready to go. If it's not, then it's probably just a sudo apt install name of whatever real-time.
Studio is on a low
Yeah.
low kernel.
And if it's not, they'll have it packaged in the repos. With Arch, you're going to have to compile that real-time or low-latency kernel. And I've done that before, and it's going to take forever and a day. And after 2 hours of compiling, when you reboot your machine, don't be surprised if you get a kernel panic. These are the things you have to deal with in Arch that you don't have to deal with in Ubuntu.
I think
true.
18.10 is going to be a big release for Studio as well, so it might be one to look at.
With Studio, I believe it's optional when you install, and each section is modular. Like the audio section is modular, the
You can
graphics section is
take-
modular.
Very specifically, you can choose. I like that about Studio.
That's very good.
Yeah.
DT,
Yeah.
before you said about Microsoft buying GitHub, I just remembered that Linux Foundation, the executive director of Linux Foundation, said that Microsoft buying GitHub is a good thing. I just remember that.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing depending on where you're sitting. Obviously, the guys that owned GitHub before Microsoft bought it, it's a good thing for them because they all got filthy, stinking rich when Microsoft. So.
Well, Microsoft Foundation, the Linux Foundation does have Microsoft as a gigantic backer, so obviously they're going to be in favor of this.
And probably it's gonna give them a big plus in everything since it was, I believe, backend of GitHub was a bit lacking since everything, as far as I heard.
Yeah.
It
And
was a
Ghost
bit
Mirror.
lacking of funding and stuff like that.
Ghost Mirror in the chat is asking, isn't GitLab owned by Google?
No.
Google has not
No.
purchased GitLab. No.
No,
Now,
As
it
far
wouldn't.
as I know, GitLab is independent.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, GitLab
Yeah.
is independent. Actually, I'm thinking of switching to GitLab from Microsoft's own Visual Studio Team Services.
Yeah, GitLab's good. I moved over to GitLab the day before they officially announced the GitHub acquisition. And GitLab, to their credit, makes moving from something like GitHub and several other Git repositories pretty easy. They have some tools that make just switching over 5 minutes, you're done.
I will
So,
probably host it myself.
Yeah,
you going to host your own Git repo?
I'm gonna host my own
Yeah.
version of GitLab. That's one thing.
Yep.
I keep control of all my code.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I actually don't use Git for to share with others. I use it for version
Right.
control as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm
Yeah,
a programmer, at least like to be one.
Yeah, I would do that too, except I've got a lot of my config files and stuff public. People ask me all the time for all my stuff, so I've got it there. They can just go get it.
For the projects that I run, we ended up using Bitbucket because the main coder likes that the most. He uses it at work. And the gigantic benefit of that is that they have free CI compiling in the cloud for like much more resources than we ever need. So anytime we make a plugin change, Bitbucket will actually compile the change for us in a Docker container that we specified, and that's a gigantic plus that we have that for free.
That's kind of cool.
I did notice something about the new beta.
Hey, Ricky, your audio's
You're
low.
really low.
What about now?
Yeah, that's better.
That's better.
Yeah, as I was saying, the one thing about Ubuntu I like is besides LXQT, there's an option for OpenBox as well.
Yeah, because the window manager is OpenBox and LXQT, so you already have OpenBox there. That's
Right.
now you won't have a OpenBox session configured. You can go to the login manager, like DM, I'm assuming they're using, and log into an OpenBox session, but it's just going to be a blank screen, and you're not going to have anything configured. You're not going to have a panel or a menu that's been set up. You're going to have to do all that yourself.
Yeah.
And for somebody like me,
I'm aware of that.
GitLab and download these configs for OpenBucket.
Right, well, that's what I was about to say. For somebody like me, it's not a big deal because I have all my configs on GitLab. I just pull that down, and 2 minutes later, I'm back up and running. But if you've never used OpenBox before, it can be kind of a daunting task because you won't really know exactly what's going on the first time you log in. The main thing, though, is the main thing with OpenBox, the very first time you set it up, is install a panel or a dock right away. That's going to make your life so much easier.
So much easier.
Installing a dock, I think, is the most simplest part for me. I would just go with either Docky or Plank, one or the other.
Yeah, either one works fine.
Nice, actually.
Yeah.
The one Derek uses, Tin 2, is a really nice dock.
Yeah, and I've used that one for 10 years. That's why I keep using it. It's like, people tend to stick with what they know. It's just the one I've always used. If you want a better panel as far as, a fully featured panel with a nice menu system, the LX panel that LXDE works with.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really have any dependencies. You can install LX panel and use that in OpenBox if you want, and you have, that menu system that you're used to.
I like Tin 2 personally. I use it.
Yeah.
I actually stole a bit of config from you. Just like that theme, I used it in my OpenBox, your team.
Yeah, well, anything you stole from me, I stole that from other people. So, yeah.
The beauty of open source.
Yeah, I've reviewed so many OpenBox distros, and each one of them had a thing that I was like, you know what? I really wished I had this or I had that. And I get their configs. Most of them are on GitHub anyway. So I'll go to the Bunsen Lab GitHub page or Crunchbang++ or whatever OpenBox distro, and I just pick and choose the things that I liked from each distro. And
Is there a place we can see your current setup, DT?
Yeah, if you want to check my OpenBox configs or my Qtile configs, which I'm living in now, GitLab, I will post the link. It is pretty
not just the configs, but like a video or a screenshot of what it looks like.
Actually,
yeah, you could do.
I actually do have some screenshots somewhere. It's going to take me a second.
Yeah, if you want a nice out-of-the-gate OpenBox experience, check out Bunsen Labs, which is formerly Crunchbang.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bunsen Labs is all right, actually. Yeah.
It's pretty good right now.
Bunsen Labs is great. Crunchbang++ is great. Sticking with the Debian-based theme. Salient OS. I don't know if they've had a release lately, but I really liked Salient OS for OpenBox.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Arch Labs is great. Arco with OpenBox is great.
Yep.
Manjaro does a community edition for OpenBox. It's only been up for a few months, but they just recently started an OpenBox edition of Manjaro.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. If you want to see my configs for OpenBox, and you want a video of it to see like some of the cool features that I do with my configs, the best video I think I did demonstrating that was I was reviewing Present Arms, his custom PC Linux OS, and he used my OpenBox configs. And this video I'm going to post in the chat. check out that video and you'll see, some of my theming, custom theme, plus all my key bindings, some of the tiling I do with OpenBox, all my key bindings and everything. And if you like any of those configs that you see in that video, you can find it at my GitLab page. The GitLab is gitlab.com/DWT1, I think. I hope that's it. I could be wrong about that.
When I eventually release the Pulse Audio thing, would you guys rather have it be on GitHub or GitLab?
I mean, it's up to you. I don't mind either one. Me personally, just hosting my stuff, I would rather be on GitLab, but I pull stuff from GitHub all the time because it's still the largest Git repository out there. Still millions of people are using it. So.
Oh, nuts.
Both of them are okay.
Yeah.
Personally, I use both of them for like my open source projects.
Yeah.
Which is currently a count of them is 0, but okay.
And Ghost Mirror in the chat. Have I tried or even heard of Clear Linux? It's supposed to have optimizations for Intel chips, or mainly built for it. I have not actually heard of Clear Linux. I don't know anything about it, and I haven't tried it. It's optimized for Intel chips. That's cool. I actually don't have any machines that have Intel chips. Though.
What isn't optimized for Intel?
Yeah.
Well,
Because
from
Intel was so main for last couple of years, it's kinda ironic if you do AMD.
And everybody's moving to Ryzen's and Threadrippers
Yeah,
now.
now for last couple of years, it's a couple of months, it's Ryzen.
Yeah. If anybody wants to.
Even then, for a couple of months, Ryzen wasn't the main thing since nobody knew if AMD will follow with development and stuff and support for Ryzen, since we know how they used to be. But now, even I, who to be told I didn't recommend Ryzen for a lot of time, now recommend it.
Wow.
Because
Absolutely, yeah.
People, and even I personally didn't know if they will support in future and stuff like that. Now we can see that they probably will.
Yeah.
For me, the reason not to use Clear Linux is pretty much literally the fact that it is made by Intel. I trust them even less than Microsoft. I expect defaults like using a potentially compromised CPU-based random number generator rather than a software-based one. I expect optimal integration with Intel Management Engine and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm not jumping for it if I can get a distro that ships KDE by default with all kinds of configs that I like.
You see, I did not know that Clear Linux was made by Intel. Yeah, I wouldn't be thrilled about that. I thought it was a community project.
Compiler as well.
Yeah.
It's a cloud distro too, so it's probably something you don't really want to run on a desktop.
Oh, kind of like
It's a
Alpha.
fast desktop, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I was gonna say my main machine is all Intel on board, and I
Yeah,
haven't
so
had
it's fucking cool.
with any of the
No.
distributions I've used on it.
And, with Intel's, security problems, I don't want to bash on those guys too much because they had a really, really bad year the last year. But eventually they're going to have to redesign everything. I mean, their whole CPU architecture is going to have to be changed to really fix all these exploits. So,
Security-wise, I don't really trust AMD. Basically, don't trust anyone security-wise, because security changes. We could say every minute, if not every second.
well,
Mm-hmm.
and
Somebody
Intel
finds a new 0-day or a new exploit. Like, you can find it in an exploit in basically what would be computer equivalent of Fort Knox, the most secure system. You will find 0-day.
And we'll give Intel some credit, though. They know they screwed up with all those exploits. Around the new year? What was it? Spectre and Meltdown.
Spectre
they know
Meltdown,
that they know they
variations. They still come out.
They know they handled that really, really badly. And since then, when these newer exploits come out, they're on the ball quick. They're not trying to hide it. They're working with the kernel team to get things patched. Where, they knew about Meltdown and Spectre for something like 4 or 5 months before it became public.
let's be clear. Spectre and Meltdown, even those patches in kernel and microcode patches, those don't mean a lot.
Yeah.
Because if they're gonna fix that, they will need to create a new silicon and whole new stuff in silicon, because it's the coding inside the processors. It has errors at such a big level, such a small level. It's crazy.
Well, what made the Meltdown Inspector thing so messed up is that Intel only told certain companies about it, and they wouldn't allow these companies to talk to each other about it. Like, they told Red Hat about this. They told Canonical about this. They told SUSE about this. They didn't tell Oracle. They didn't tell Oracle. They didn't tell Debian. Now, probably 95% of desktop Linux users are running Debian or a Debian-based distro. How are you not going to tell Debian about that exploit?
Here, let's be clear. I know why they didn't tell a lot of people. Why don't just big players? It's because less people you tell, less chance it gets to media. It gets to those hackers.
It got to them anyway. Ultimately, somebody leaked it anyways. So.
That's the problem. That people leak things. A lot of people say that why nobody tells for problems. Actually, security wise, a lot of people don't know that you have to not tell a lot of people, because that actually creates a whole other security problem, and a lot of people will actually hunt especially those type of news to use them against the companies that try to fix them. And that's the problem. That's why Intel, and that's why even other companies, for many bugs or many 0 days, they don't tell anyone, or they tell just those who are big players in fixing it. And when fixes are out, then you tell smaller players, and after that you tell the public.
So the question is, I'm not sure if DT knows, because I don't know. You know about the Intel stuff. Do you know how AMD handled it in comparison, given that they are suspect to a lot of the same vulnerabilities?
As a company, see, the Linux kernel guys really trashed Intel for the way they handled this. They didn't say anything about AMD through all this, so I'm assuming AMD worked with these guys pretty closely and openly about it. So I don't know.
The difference between Intel and AMD and how Spectre and Meltdown affects this is that because Zen, the whole architecture Ryzen is based on, is so much newer, and all the coding inside is so much more new. Even the execution, the speculative execution is much newer, code base and everything. It isn't as much affected by Spectre and Meltdown.
But you still have those older chips out there. You still have the FX chips and Phenom and all the APUs. You still have to support those chips.
Use a lot of specular execution as much as the Intel did. Intel was a premier on this, and that's why they actually gained many of their customers. And after that, now that Zen is out, Zen uses much of the same technology, but the difference is they did it in a completely different way, newer ways. So that's why it's not as much affected by Spectre and Meltdown. Specifically, while Intel, it's much easier to access. Yes, it affects most of the Spectre and Meltdown affects AMD processors the same. It's much harder to gain access to that specific part that would make it crash or whatever, gain you intelligence on what it says on computers, like that. Much harder. But as far as I know, and I'm not that in know about this stuff, kind of stopped reading about it after it was like a month into it.
Yeah.
Most of the different versions of Spectre and Meltdown are even on AMD CPUs.
Yeah, some of it will execute on AMD CPUs, even ARM. I mean,
Yeah.
some of this stuff works on all the chips, but really, Intel took all the heat for this because
and ARM is in the same boat as Intel.
Mhm.
Let's be clear. A lot of people don't say anything about ARM, but ARM chips are just as affected as Intel chips are.
But a lot of people blame Intel because they're the ones that really tried to keep all this under wraps and prevent it from being public information. It wasn't AMD doing that. Ultimately, this was a good thing for AMD because they knew this was going to look bad for Intel when all this came out, and you saw Intel just took a nosedive. AMD shot way up. So.
Yeah.
A lot of people blame Intel for not telling, but those who are in security and stuff like that, those are actually congratulating Intel on how they handled it. Because if they would tell even those who were preparing patches, at least somewhat patches, wouldn't have time to prepare them, and we could have quite a mayhem on our hands.
And here's another criticism that the kernel team had about all this regarding the Intel chips is, why is it the Linux kernel team's job to patch a problem with your hardware? You know, this was not something, the Linux kernel team did not break these Intel chips, you know, but, you know, ultimately it's, we need you guys to fix our problem. And that's
because how Linux kernel works. Because Linux kernel works on I don't remember, I actually read about it a couple of days ago, how they inject Intel microcode inside. And because of how it works on processor level, it's much easier for them to inject patches than through microcode. And why they were forcing work on kernel team, it's because if they would do the work themselves, maybe it wouldn't be as good or as quick to work with kernel as the kernel team could make it, since they know the whole code base.
Yeah, I mean, and they didn't force the kernel to patch
basically
this thing because the kernel had to patch it anyway. I mean, they can't let this kind of security issue not be addressed. But
Intel would do it, it would be a bit slower and maybe a bit sluggish to work, and could make whole kernel crappier for us users. So they put the workload on kernel team, who could make the best it could be.
Because I was reading an article a couple of weeks back, and one of the quotes, I think it was from either Linus or it may have been from Greg Crow or Hartman, the number 2 at the kernel, basically saying that, you know, when they break things, if they have a problem with the kernel, they break things, have major security issues, they own it, they fix it, but they don't like having to own other people's problems and fixing other people's problems. So
Intel, on the other hand, actually fixing the problem on silicon level, which is by all means actually harder than fixing it on kernel level.
But how long have they known that their CPUs have had these vulnerabilities? I mean, we know they knew several months ahead of time, but even before that, they probably knew. I mean, this has been coming
not a lot, because this was really coming out. And
I don't think they knew it was a vulnerability, but they knew that the ability to do the speculation,
the speculative execution, that was a problem. Yeah.
They probably knew that it was old.
Performance.
They probably knew that it was old and it should be repaired. They were just riding on that wave of not working since AMD Zen was just coming out, so they didn't really want to fix it. But I think with 10 series, with 10 generation, the new fixes, the new silicon fixes will be totally out.
Yeah. I think it's all going to be fine.
Completely new silicon and everything like that.
Yeah.
But 9 will be just rebadge of 8.
Yeah, the i9 series. I mean, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for those chips. So.
No, I didn't mean i9. I meant 9th generation.
Okay, yeah,
9000,
okay.
Which comes out probably in like a month or two.
Yeah.
Well, that will be just a copy of with fixes of 8th generation. It probably won't have the speculative execution fixes, a lot of them. But 10th generation, it probably will have everything fixed, because they'll probably do the whole new silicone and everything like that.
Yeah. That'll be another year, 18 months away from now, though.
Yeah.
If everything goes correctly, it will probably come with 10 nanometer, which will come at the end of next year, somewhere November, December 2019, as far as basically as far as Intel roadmap says.
Yeah, so it's a ways away.
And I think Intel actually is going for a bit of a pause right now, let AMD gain some lead, since they still have in server market a lot of plus, since AMD's Zen Epic lineup still isn't enough mature for a lot of server admins and stuff like that to actually trust in it, that it will be supported for as long as they need it.
Yeah.
Which is actually one reason I personally don't want to go on to Ryzen for my own rig, since as we know from old times of AMD, they will take one generation and they will drag it for 5 generations. Just like the CPU you have, DT.
Yeah.
It's basically a really old CPU. They basically just copy paste and added another trace on it, and that's just it.
No. In the chat, real quick, Joe King was asking, what base does everyone prefer for distros, Arch or Debian? Arch and Debian, of course, are probably the two most popular distros to base a distro off of. They're both fine, but they have different use cases. Debian, if you want something stable, is where you want to be. If you want something rolling release, Arch is where you want to be. So it depends on use case. There's not one that's preferable to the other. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people ask.
Personally, I don't like Debian as an operating system. I'm more Ubuntu, but Arch is mainline. Arch is great. Even though I'm still more Ubuntu guy. My Arch is broken for like 2 weeks now, and I'm kind of getting it fixed. It's more or less I have it for playing with it.
Yeah, I'm taking a break from Arch for a while. I'm on Linux Mint XFCE right now.
Oh, cool.
I don't have time to tinker with Arch. Just got too much going on, so I just need something.
I've got Mint Cinnamon running on my ThinkPad, and it's not bad.
Cinnamon's really good. It'll run on any type of hardware you throw at it. I mean, Switch to Linux approves of it a lot.
I don't know how much I don't particularly like the Cinnamon desktop environment, but as far as Linux Mint as a distro, easy install and everything on that laptop just works. Everything I've installed and tried to run, I mean, it just.
I have
software. There's no, all the dependencies are resolved for you. And it's just nothing to do.
I like Mint a lot, but with Cinnamon, I have the same criticism as I have with KDE. It in some aspects it's too hard to try to be Windows environment.
Yeah, it's that
That's
same
exactly
kind of,
why I use it.
Yeah, it's the same kind of Windows workflow. I would agree. It's very similar to Windows.
Many that try,
but it's not Windows.
To be Windows.
No.
Depending on
to look at like Windows, I don't like them.
Yeah, but depending on the theme you put on it, like there's that one distro. I think they're based off of Mint. I know they use some of the Mint tools. Is it Makulu Linux that has that Cinnamon desktop, and they theme it to look almost exactly like Windows. Like the menu system and everything is even the wallpaper. They call that version of Makulu Lindos. If you guys haven't checked that out, maybe run that in a VM or put it on a USB stick and check it out. If you want something that really looks like Windows but is Linux.
For me, the best use of Macula Lindows that I've ever used was to prank the text scammer that I got a pop-up from. So I installed Maculu Lindows in a VM. I got them to TeamViewer into the VM, and then they could not figure out why dir and tree and all those commands were not working.
I actually put one of those scammers into Linux. I believe it was Ubuntu or Arch. One of those VMs I have, like 100 VMs I have, or how much? Okay, it's 30 something. I actually put a scammer inside that. They were trying like 10 minutes. He was trying to even figure out how command line works.
Yeah.
For me, I was part of a group that frequently called them up to waste their time. And given that I'm a sysadmin for Windows as my job, I managed to create the perfect virtual machine for this stuff. So what I did back then, I used my old Acer recovery image to install a Windows 7 image exactly like my Acer laptop. And then I used all kinds of hidden VirtualBox settings to spoof the BIOS, serial number, names of all the hardware components. So any tool that they could possibly use read out as if it was the actual laptop, including matching serial numbers and everything.
Yeah.
I then tweaked the system in such a way that every single thing they could do in their call script would give a positive result that there was nothing wrong with the machine. So, for example, something they do on the Windows side, they open up the services menu, like, are all the services enabled? And there's always a few that are not running. And then they say, oh, your services have stopped working. That's a problem. That's a hacker. So I actually went into the system, used Resource Hacker to edit the language file to change the word disabled to enabled. So I had all of them running, and they could not figure out why that was. I did that for Task Manager and all the programs there. If they do command line, they always do, like, they type in dir/s or tree, and then they list all your files, and then they have some time to type in like viruses found with an echo and a command. So if they do that on the VM that I prepared, there would be an actual ASCII art of a tree popping up. If they did netstat, they got a fake one with Rick Ashley lyrics as the IP addresses, all that kind of fun things that were really fun to waste their time with. And if they then started to type their notepad, you have to pay this, there was an auto hotkey script running in the background that replaced all the useful words. So if it was like, we are a Microsoft certified technician, it would replace technician with intern and dollar with pieces of chicken curry and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of this kind of stuff, especially over on Reddit at R Linux, or even like R command line. These sysadmins that have fun at their jobs, you know, they basically write a script on somebody's machine, and you know, they find the bash commands that you use on a regular basis, but they have these scripts running to throw you these weird error messages to make you think your machine is broke. You know, these people have way too much time at their job to.
Yeah.
I actually one time made whole classroom computers like they were melting, screens like they were melting. And we were a computer class, IT class, and my schoolmates didn't know what they were doing. What was happening?
I have a question. And this is a question for everybody. What is the one thing about Linux that got you to switch over to Linux full time in the first place?
Malware on Windows. I had a machine that was taken over by some adware, and I just said, screw it, I've had enough of this. It wasn't the first time I've had Windows machines that were completely owned, and you know, I'd been playing around with Linux and servers for years before that. I played around a little bit with Ubuntu as far as a desktop operating system. Never really considered switching to it until I realized I hated Windows so much. I was just cold turkey. I went straight to Ubuntu. I think it was 8.04 around that time, that LTS, and just never looked back. I just made the switch. Yeah. I didn't dual boot. I didn't do any of that. You know, spend some time and no, I just said enough and just jumped in and never looked back.
Yeah, with me it was Windows 95 that made me switch, crashing all the time. They promised when Microsoft brought out Windows 95, if a program crashes, it won't take the whole OS out, and it invariably every time did. And I was in the supermarket or somewhere, and I noticed something like a PC magazine with a Distro on the front cover. I thought, whoa, another operating system. This is new, and this is back in. It was Slackware 3 or 4,
Yeah.
and that's how I got started on Linux. But it just didn't fall over. It was stable. I thought, oh, this is how it's meant to be, is it? Yeah, good days.
Yeah.
So
I think
for me,
go ahead, sir.
go ahead, Rishi.
I think the one thing that made me switch to Linux full time is just what Microsoft was doing with Windows 10, in the whole privacy and telemetry stuff that was going on. That made me switch because I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So I switched full time.
Yeah.
All right,
I think we're gonna.
Linux and I go back quite a long way. Ever since I was a child, I've always been interested in trying it out, messing with it, etc. I also had those magazines with front covers with like Mandrake Linux and Linspire and Lindos back in the day. Actually, it was still called. But it was never good enough. I always went back to Windows. Windows was just the polished experience, and Linux was fun to play with, but it was never suitable to really use as my stable system and game on and stuff like that. And then Windows 10 came out. Windows 10, the first build that you can try, if you install that right now, it's build 1511, is actually so incredibly unpolished that it matched the current experience I had with Linux. So they were actually equal in polish, because KDE kept getting better and better and better, and Microsoft watched their Windows 10 release, so it actually no longer mattered for me to use Windows or Linux, because I got roughly the same quality of experience. And then KDE started getting even better with the release of 5.8 on Linux Mint. And now, especially 5.12, I've been enjoying KDE so much that I've completely switched over and haven't looked back for the laptop.
No, for me, it started with Windows 7. I started doing tech support, family and friends, and do a fresh install, and you end up spending your whole weekend doing updates.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got to be so annoying. And then with Windows 10, it just got progressively worse. After Windows 8, 10, and then the privacy issues with Windows 10.
Yeah.
In the last, couple years ago, I said, the heck with this. I'm so done with this. I had been playing with Linux over the, probably the past 10 years, but I was in and out with it, it wasn't as stable as Windows, even though the updates were a pain in the butt. But when Windows 10 was the end of it for me, I got so tired of waiting hours for updates.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. I've been playing with Linux ever since you could buy it on CD at Staples. But I couldn't find anything that I had time to deal with. It's gotten a lot more stable over the years. And I tell you, I don't regret it. I will never go back to Windows. Never.
No, I can't imagine ever going back. There's nothing there for me. So.
Yeah, I won't be back either.
In fact, later on, I have a question for you guys, because I've got a tablet that I want to wipe out. A full tab that runs so slow. So I'm looking for a Linux operating system to put on that, and I want to know what you guys think. But
okay.
We can do that later.
For me, why I switched, it actually didn't really switch fully. I still use as much Windows as I do Linux, since I play games and I do very much programming in C#. But I switched to Linux at least for my normal stuff like word processing and many other stuff. This is because I wanted to learn Linux, since I want to be system administrator, and a lot of work is in Linux, since most servers are on Linux. And I didn't never have much problems with Windows, like waiting for updates. For that, I didn't really have any problems, since I always was on cutting edge of Windows. So I got updates as quickly as I had them, as they were out, always updated. But I decided it's time that I learn Linux. So I actually forced myself. I made a part of school final exam. We have to make some IT's written a long written form. A lot of stuff I have to write. So I decided I'm gonna go on Linux server software. So that's how I forced myself to learn command line Linux. And since then, I installed it on my laptop, and this is how I work. Part Windows, part Linux.
Cool.
Well, that's another thing. I have I have an older laptop that just wasn't running Windows well anymore. So I put Linux on it, and it runs great. It's like a new laptop.
Yeah. Now, both my laptops that I have a Toshiba Satellite that's about 4 years old. I have that ThinkPad that I used when I bought it. They would struggle. They would struggle with Windows 10. I know that Toshiba Satellite, when I bought it, I actually bought that, and it had Windows 8 on it. And it was struggling with Windows 8 the day I bought it. It was slow. It was just painful to use. So, yeah, some of this is just, they're not going to run Windows anyway that well. You might as well put a different operating system on it.
Like my old laptop, it's a Sony Vaio. It's not a cheap machine.
Yeah.
It's kind of a waste to throw it away because it won't run Windows.
Yeah.
Well,
This old laptop right here, this is an HP Pavilion DV6. Had this thing since 2011. It runs great with Linux.
Doesn't surprise me.
4 gigs of RAM. Got a 60 gigabyte hard drive. The original hard drive I still have it, which is a 500 gigabyte.
And pretty much all the Linux desktops are lighter than Windows. I've put the heaviest stuff on that ThinkPad I could. I mentioned it's running Linux Mint Cinnamon. That's not a light desktop environment. No. I actually ran Deepin, the latest version of Deepin on it for a couple of weeks. Deepin desktop environment is very heavy, but it's still lighter than Windows. So,
well, for me, even on my old 10-year-old laptop that I used to use, it ran Windows 10 quite okay. Not really a gaming machine, but it ran, so it was usable for word processing. But I wanted to learn Linux, so I just wiped it and installed Linux. And on that machine, until it broke, was Linux only. But now I bought myself a new laptop, and I have half a NVMe is Windows, half is Linux, and then on hard drive I have, I believe, 100 gigs reserved for Arch, so I can break it as many times as I want.
Yeah, I've always preferred Linux ever since I first tried it back in 2006. I started with Ubuntu 6.06, and I thought that was okay, but then I tried Kubuntu 6.06, and I really did like the KDE 3 desktop.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah. And the only thing that's really kept me on Windows is gaming, because I do play a lot of games. And all the times I was going through school using things like Microsoft Office and having to use that for school, I had to keep Windows around anyway. But I've noticed since the whole Steam Play thing with Valve, I've been spending less and less time on Windows because a lot of the games I play, I've actually gotten to work with Proton. So.
Nice.
We've been joking for years about this is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. This is going to be the year of the Linux desktop. I'm not going to make that kind of, proclamation here, but I think we're going to see some major growth on the Linux desktop market very soon because, again, a lot of people are done with Windows. A lot of people are never going to move to Windows 10 if they're not already on it. A lot of people are never moving from 7. They don't want to ever get off 7. Plus, now that Steam Play is a big deal. Once Valve really has that Steam Play mature enough that you can run any game on any operating system you want, whether it be Windows, Linux, Mac, Chrome OS, whatever, you're going to see more people give Linux a try. Because
I haven't had much luck with Proton and Steam Play.
Yeah.
Since I tried to play Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, it didn't work. Tried Black Ops 2, didn't work as well. And
that's strange because the Call of Duty games, I mean, they've been working for years anyway in Wine, which Proton
Yeah,
is. So.
but for me, and I see on Steam Player compatibility report, only Modern Warfare, the first one, actually has platinum rating. All are more or less in broken or really low ratings. So
are you running the latest kernel and the latest drivers, video drivers? Because if you're not on the latest kernel or the latest video driver, you're gonna have some major issues.
Latest kernel, but I don't have latest video driver. I have.
Which brand do you have, BigPot?
What?
Which brand do you use, BigPot?
I use HP laptop.
Yeah, but which graphics brand? Is it Intel? Is it AMD? Is it NVIDIA?
NVIDIA. It's 1050 Ti, and I do have 396.
The 396 driver?
Driver on Ubuntu. It is the latest one Canonical Team allows, basically Canonical Team.
All right, in that case, ignore DT's advice. Don't upgrade your kernel past what Ubuntu ships with, because that will break the binary driver. And it's going to be annoying to get that working with anything newer. If you run AMD, just update to the latest ZenMod or SteamVR kernel, and then update to the Mesa PPA. Actually, as a side project, I'm making a little install script that can install it for both NVIDIA and AMD, depending on what you select. I already have them individually. Because
I'm actually going to probably go for the binary driver NVIDIA ships on their own site. It might work better.
Yeah, I would try that. The 4.10.5.7 binary. It's been working really well for me.
I might go, or I might just go with trying Steam on Arch, but on Ubuntu, I know it doesn't work very well for me.
Well, on an Arch-based distro, you're not going to have an issue getting the latest kernel and latest drivers and all that because you're already on it. It's these stable distros like Ubuntu and Debian that are going to give you issues because you're going to be so far behind on some of these versions. So,
if I'm going to go for playing games on Linux, I'm probably going to go bleeding edge and that's it.
Yeah, but Ubuntu has PPAs for all of this, I'm sure. So,
but for now, I'm actually quite content with playing games on Windows.
Yeah, because I haven't tried out the
since so much work.
I haven't tried out the Steam Play thing because I don't have a Windows machine, so I don't want to, especially like any of the paid games. I'm not going to buy a Windows only game and then hope it works on Steam Play because if it doesn't, I don't have a Windows machine to boot into.
I can if you give me the permission, I can post a link to the Steam compatibility report.
Yeah, actually, I think I know the website you're already going to post. I have it bookmarked, your Steam compatibility report.
Yeah, I'd say if you were looking at any of the ones that are on the compatible list, you probably could go for it and feel pretty safe about it.
The one that I really recommend for you, DT, still is Doom 2016. It runs amazing on at least my system with like 200 FPS on the max settings.
And I would love
crazy well optimized.
I would love to try that game. The one thing that bothers me about that particular game is you need, what is it, like 90 gigs of hard disk space to install that game?
It's more like 60, but it's quite a lot.
Wow.
Okay. So I don't have a ton of storage on the drive that I'm running Manjaro here in today because of all my VMs, and I've got a ton of music, so I'm kind of limited on drive space. And once you start telling,
a very hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have one just for gaming.
Yeah, you know what? I could just boot into a separate, install on a different drive just for gaming.
If you're gonna go with, buy an additional hard drive and hook it up into your already set installation.
Okay. On Windows at least, Steam supports installing your games to separate hard drives. I assume that they also have that
on Linux as well.
Yeah, you can.
It has to be ext4, and then you can just set up a Steam library location on the other drive. That's it.
You just go into the settings and you can set your Steam library to go to your
I have
whatever.
an old USB hard drive for that.
Yeah, I've got an external drive too that I use for my Steam games. It works pretty well. I don't notice any difference.
I have it for Steam games and for VirtualBox machines.
And what I need to do is I need to get me some big storage drives, some spinning disks, because all I have is
Spinning
SSDs.
Rust.
I have a lot of 256 and 512 SSDs, but a lot of these bigger games, especially like the massive multiplayer games that some of these things need 100 gigs of space to install. Well, if I install half a dozen of these games, I'm already out of disk space.
If you're gonna go for a game, like a game drive, you probably should go for like 3 or 4 terabytes.
Yeah, that's what
I've got a 3 terabyte.
Quite cheap.
It works well.
And you're gonna have it for a long time, and you should have them. And if you're gonna go for such big, you should probably go for some brand and not just some random drive. Like
no,
Seagate.
I would get a name brand. Yeah, it's something like
Probably go for Seagate or Western
Digital. Yeah,
this is what I most recommend to anyone. And if you're gonna go, don't go for like what internet says is the best, like a Western Digital Black. Those are let's be clear, crap.
I've actually had one of those fell on me a few years back. Yeah,
I have a
black
couple
ones.
of them that failed to people who I keep computers for, or at least I kept, because problem is that those really spin really fast.
They wear out quicker.
They are basically they are on the edge of what they can be used, and since they're not NAS drives, they're not as much protected, so any kind of bomb can break them.
Yeah, you're breaking up there.
I'd probably
a little
go
bit,
for
Big
something like red or purple. If you're gonna go for like red, since it's NAS rated and it can survive quite a big bumps and stuff like that.
Cool.
The way I did it for my system in the gaming system is I have a 1 terabyte SSD, and then everything else that I don't need to actively use is on a separate storage drive. So I have unlimited data because that's the default in the Netherlands. There is no provider with limited data. So if I need a Steam game that's large, I'll just delete another one and download it back, play that for a while, and then swap them out. It works great.
Here in Slovenia, we don't have any limited data plans, at least on computer internet. We do have it on mobile, but who cares for mobile when it comes to gaming?
And the other thing about some of these larger games, I mean, I guess it's a minor gripe, but when you install some of these huge games, when they have updates, sometimes I only have a few minutes. I want to jump into a game and play it, but the game requires this gigantic update that takes half hour or 45 minutes. By then, I don't even want to game anymore if I got to wait that long for some of these updates. So.
It kind of depends on which region you are, I bet, because I know that America is notoriously bad for limited slow internet, and here in Holland it's like 5 minutes.
I have like basic plan here on fiber is 50 megabit per second download, and that's like basic, the least you can pay, and I can go really easily. I could go for 100 megabit per second. Like I believe it's next tier or like 2 tiers up is 100 megabit per second. So it's quite cheap.
Yeah, the one I'm jealous about is for a colleague of mine. It's only available in a handful of cities in the Netherlands. It's 1 gigabit symmetric data, unlimited for €1 a day.
I wish I had symmetric internet.
That sounds cool. That's
yeah.
I have the second level with my ISP, and it's
is that heavily subsidized or what?
That's just the ISP that has their own infrastructure that doesn't have to pay up wholesale prices. It's just a fair ISP.
He is probably even close to the ISP.
He's probably right next door, practically.
Yeah. They just literally built the entire fiber network for that city, so everyone that has them, they don't have to pay up for the nationwide cable stuff. They just built it themselves, and it's massive different because the same one I can get here, but it's like 56 a month for 100, and it's just, if you have a fair non-globalistic ISP, it's one of the gigantic ones that especially are like Verizon and stuff like that in America. If you got a local ISP, those are usually cheap and great, but they're only in a handful of towns.
Was yours a municipal ISP?
Mine is a nationwide one, so mine is expensive. But the guy that I talked about, it's like they only have the infrastructure in 3 cities, and in those 3 cities, it's insanely cheap.
I have the nation, the one that is actually owned by the country I live in, and most of the infrastructure is owned by them. And I even live outside of city, like 6 kilometers out, which is countryside here. So I actually could get a much faster internet for not as much pay, since it's all their equipment and their infrastructure. Actually, they build the fiber cables all for free. You just sign 2-year contracts. So basically, 2 years I have to be with them, and I have their fiber lines for free then.
Kind of like what the cell phone contracts were around here.
Yeah. Here we also have cell phone contract. You get 2-year contract, and you can buy a phone cheaper. Here it was, we had to sign 2-year contract. Not even actually the contract. We had to change the package, and the package is cheaper than the one we were using. And they probably get a plus from that. And I probably won't switch from them since it's their main trunk. So I can use it at the best possible. Actually, I never have anything below 50 megabit per second. Most of the time, I even have more, ironically.
On the mobile network in the Netherlands, they actually did a study what's required for fair competition in the marketplace. They had 3 ISPs for mobile plans for years, and it was like $60 a month for unlimited and really low data caps and stuff. And then they introduced a 4th one as the experiment. And the 4th one that could buy frequencies was forced to be a new one. So the large corporations couldn't buy things up. And because of that, I now have 26 euros per month for an unlimited everything plan. So as long as you get at least 4 providers competing, the prices are fair. And if you don't have that, because there's like one nationwide cable provider and one nationwide DSL provider and one nationwide fiber provider, then it's gonna go insane. So legislation, if it's possible, always plead for at least 4 competing companies that are not dependent on each other in the same region, because then the prices get really low.
Here we have like 4 nationwide cell phone providers, but we must understand that Slovenia is a small country, like from one side to another with 200 or 300 kilometers. So it's not really hard to get nationwide providers. But those 4, I believe there are 3 or 4 providers, they have quite competitive prices. I am on the most expensive one, who has all their own infrastructure, and I pay 20 euros for, I believe it is 30 gigabytes of internet, and I also get my own IP, and all other stuff are unlimited. So I can actually, unlike most other cell phone providers, you are in a local network of cell phones when you're connected to internet. Here you are your own network of only one phone, so it's also a bit more secure. We're actually talking about it in school like 2 years ago. Actually, they told us, a professor who is in security and stuff like that told us that provider is one of the most secure provider in whole of country, since their phone network is, every phone has its own IP. So even if you get targeted, it just targets you, and even then the security is so tight that they cannot really hack you.
Cool. Speaking of security, you just mentioned security. I wanted to mention something. Was it on one of the Sunday chats we had? I don't know if it was last Sunday or the Sunday before. One of the guys on the chat mentioned that they downloaded the Antergos ISO from the Antergos homepage, and there was some malware or some adware in the Antergos installer.
From a torrent, Derek, yeah.
Yeah.
He downloaded the torrent from the Antergos site and downloaded malware with it, yeah.
Right. And we all mentioned that he should let the Antergos guys know about that if he, had that problem with something he got from their website. The next day, I had somebody message me on Reddit saying the same thing. I just grabbed that ISO from the Antergos website, and he showed me a picture of the pop-up that happened, in the installer, and it was, some kind of malware or adware. And apparently, Antergos had their website, at least that ISO, compromised. So that was...
Yeah, probably their backend.
But they fixed the problem now, but a couple of weeks back, that was...
I think they said it was a torrent too, so that might not have been. The link was coming from their website, but the torrent.
So it wasn't their website being compromised. They were just linking to something they shouldn't have.
It's probably their CDN that was the problem.
Well, that's good.
But that's for them really easy to fix. They just change the CDN.
Change the torrent seed. Yeah,
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been running Sophos on my machines. I don't, and I haven't had any problems with any kind of malware or viruses or anything like that. But Sophos started going to a pay-only subscription, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
They keep trying to push me to that.
This was
which distro is that?
Sophos, SOFOS.
Oh, right, okay. We'll never see.
In case they do switch you off, I'm pretty sure that Komodo also offers a free Linux antivirus.
Which antivirus you're using? I didn't hear.
Sophos.
Sophos. That one is one of the best antiviruses in the world, as far as companies regard.
I have to massively object there. I actually like researching antivirus products for fun. I made it a skill and I've even done it professionally. On Linux, okay, because there's not that much competition, but on Windows, I can literally use Task Manager to kill the antivirus engine. I wrote a batch script in a loop and that thing was useless. So no, it's horrible software. Don't use it.
I know that a lot of companies here use it. But
on Linux, we're kind of limited in antivirus software. There's not that many options.
I remember
I'm not
true that
a couple of years ago it was regarded as the best one on Windows by companies.
And usually the only time you're running the only time you're really running antivirus software on a Linux machine, I mean, you're scanning for Windows viruses on your Linux machine anyway, so that's really what they're designed for.
Not entirely, DT. The most use that I see and effective use of antiviruses on Linux is usually something like Immunify or something on the web server front end, in case malicious scripts get uploaded and they detect that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, through email and stuff like that too. I mean,
I know I've used ClamAV to scan my Thunderbird directory, for example. You will find some strange stuff sometimes in your email directories.
ClamAV is amazing. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah.
I don't use antivirus on my Windows or on my Linux install. I'm kind of bad about that. Okay.
Me neither.
I'm operating in an enterprise environment, so I mean, it's like I got to keep it up.
Yeah, you've got no choice if you're. Yeah.
ClamAV personally, I also wouldn't rely on because they use quite poor signatures. So there's a lot of chance things slip through if you actually try and bombast it with viruses like I do.
Okay, reason I don't use antiviruses is that because I don't really care. If I get a virus, I will just plug a backup USB and transfer data and say goodbye to that OS and reinstall.
And the thing about Linux is, I mean, there's not that many viruses on Linux. I think there's about 40 of them, I believe.
About Linux viruses, I would be a bit more cautious than that because I personally, as far as I hear, most viruses aren't like public. Most of them are like really specific for a specific company or a specific server or a computer.
Yeah.
They are built for specific, so since they mostly target servers and stuff like that.
It's less of an issue on Linux too, being open
desktop
source
it's
software.
less issue.
Yeah, because a lot of times when like the kernel figures out that they have a vulnerability of some kind, or there's some new Trojan out in the wild that affects Linux in some way, usually that stuff is patched before there's even a news story about it that goes to the press. It's already been patched and fixed. Most of the time.
Are we going to see that kind of same environment with the new crew, or?
Well, what was that?
Are we going to see the same kind of I almost want to say service from the new people taking over the kernel development?
Well, there's no new people. It's the same people.
Yeah, and probably I think that even though Linus is taking a break, or at least in front, he's probably still somewhere in the back pulling the main strings.
Yeah.
And the second in command, Greg Crowe Hartman, he's been there as his right hand man for years. I mean, he runs the project anyway. Anytime Linus is not around, so it's the same people. It's exactly the same.
The thing about
I feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah. There's no new people at the kernel. It's the same old guys that have been there forever. So it's gonna keep running just fine.
Even though Linus is taking a leave of absence, he'll be back eventually.
Yeah. And Greg Crowe Hartman, they've been discussing this for a while now, many months, if not a couple of years, that eventually Linus probably will retire, or God forbid he ever gets sick or passes away suddenly. Greg Crowe Hartman is going to be the guy that takes over the kernel as far as he's going to be the lead maintainer there. So.
Didn't Greg learn from Linus himself?
Yeah, I mean, they work with each other on a daily basis for years.
Yeah.
So
I also think that that there will no difference at all with kernel development and everything like that, since it is actually the first time Linus took a break.
Right.
Like the last big break, we could say, was like it had a lot of breaks, like big breaks, but this one is like the most public one. The last public one I remember, it was a long time ago. At the time he created Git. That was a long time ago, but at that time I know he took a complete leave. He wasn't in anything connected to Git to the Linux kernel, and at that time it ran completely okay. So I think that it will be running okay as well now, until he returns.
Yeah, I mean, Linus is I mean, he's kind of like the head guy. He maintains the kernel. He's the one that approves, all the patches that come in. But he's not really contributing code much these days. It's companies like Intel, Microsoft, Google. I mean, these guys, they pay developers to write code for the kernel. That's still going to go on. It's just who's at the top, overseeing what makes it in the kernel, what doesn't. And there's other people other than Linus that are capable of handling that. So
I mean, even if something does even God forbid if something happens to Linus, there are still other people that can take over where he left off and keep it.
The kernel is such a massive project with so many people, so many companies involved, so much money behind it. Yeah, the kernel is in no danger of anything happening to it. So.
There's been a lot of hyperbole over this whole thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's blown way out of proportion.
I mean, you're not going to hear anything about, the kernel's self-destructing. That's not going to happen.
Well, all I've got to say about that is Google, they have like 1 billion Android devices, new Android devices, Chrome OS devices activated every month that require the Linux kernel. You think Google is going to allow the Linux kernel to ever die?
No.
They are going to throw so much money at that to keep that thing going.
Even Microsoft wouldn't allow that.
No, they can't. No, even car companies like Toyota that are platinum members of the Linux Foundation. Why? Because all those devices in their cars run the Linux kernel. There's too much money involved. The kernel
Well,
can't
you-
die.
On the mobile space, Google is actively planning to replace the Android system and the kernel with their own thing, Fuchsia. But for servers, I don't see how they will ever want to change.
As far as I know, Google doesn't think of switching Android with Fuchsia for another. I believe they said 5 to 10 years. The
there'll be a lot
Fuchsia
of phones
mainly
between
for them, their own experiment of sorts.
Yeah, GFY in the chat. Google and Microsoft are just black budget CIA companies.
Not
There we
really.
go. The government is about to infiltrate. Yeah.
Could well be.
And I think even Microsoft won't allow Linux to go to hell. We could say that because most of their infrastructure backend, especially Azure, runs on it, and
all of Microsoft's servers. I mean, they're running Linux.
Yeah.
You know, they're not running Windows servers at Microsoft. They're running Linux. So that
and the government has a vested interest. I mean, you look at like the international space stations running Debian.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's all over the place. You can't get away from it.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And even otherwise, Microsoft, like as I said before, the most of Azure is running Linux. That's
I am gonna object there. Because Microsoft runs Office 365, which runs Exchange at the back end, and Exchange only runs on Windows Server. And I also know that MSN.com used to be written in ASP. So for their web server end, I'm pretty sure they use IIS and Exchange, not Linux.
it's probably something like some of the sites run that, some of the sites run that.
Right. No, I wasn't saying that they don't have any Windows servers, obviously. Yeah, so they're using their products for some
Probably
things.
for
Yeah.
some compute stuff, they probably have like build servers.
Bulk
are
storage probably is the key.
And bulk storage probably Linux, like something like what's it called, Gluster and ZFS. If you ask me, probably Gluster and ZFS, like most big storages.
All right, let me mute Chris there for a second while he's on the phone.
Did this call?
All right.
And if you look at most video game consoles operating system days, most of the time video game consoles are running Linux.
Yeah, type of Linux normally, but because it would be costly to make your own, and Linux is okay operating system.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even talked about smaller devices. We haven't talked about routers, the whole Internet of Things. You know, all these small devices now that use the Linux.
A lot
kernel in
of
some way.
normal routers, like small routers you get at home, those are running proprietary operating systems. But big ones like stuff like big ones that you find in companies, many of those are running versions of either BSD or Linux.
Yeah, well, most of the time, I mean, most routers will run BSD because pfSense is a very good router.
Yeah, but many of the smaller ones, you have one in probably your house, and many of us have. Those are running proprietary systems made by the company since.
Yeah, that's
those are
a
really
lot of them.
small. And you don't need so many features as pfSense. pfSense you mainly see on your self-made boxes, or like in company environments.
Yeah, it's for people like us that wipe out what was shipped on, and we put our own.
Yeah, and I have some special OS on there, but I probably even go back to proprietary one they ship with, since it's okay. It works.
Even on the smaller ones, there's a lot of vendors that do use Linux. I know that Asus, for example, is a tweaked version of either OpenWRT or Tomato, and those usually are based on Linux again. So they won't tell you it's Linux, but it's usually Linux or FreeBSD, because why rewrite the entire thing if you have a working stack already?
Yeah,
I know,
and most users are not going to do any kind of research to even figure what's running on their router. You know, they just plug it in. If it works, it works. So.
It goes further than that as well with MIDI ITX and Nano ITX devices. EPOS systems often running Gen 2 as a backend.
Gen 2, who the hell runs Gen 2?
Well, you know what, Gentoo.
It's very, very stable as a.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a lot with Gentoo. I mean, there's a reason Chrome OS is running a Gentoo kernel. I mean,
Chrome OS is based on Gentoo, and for packages, it uses Debian.
Yeah, it's kind of a Frankenstein Linux distro, if you will. So it's got a little bit of everything. Yeah.
It's called the Franken distro. Well, I think that's one reason why Chrome OS is so special is it's a combination of a whole bunch of things rolled into one. And I mean, and with Chromebooks getting so much more popular, and I told you're going to, Chrome OS has a huge chance to become a desktop Linux standard.
Oh yeah, it already is, and you know why that is? It's because I can walk into Best Buy right now, and there's an aisle with just Chromebooks everywhere, and I can buy them. You know, I can't do that with Linux. You know, even now, you really. I mean, what kind of vendors do we have that ship laptops or desktops with Linux pre-installed? You're not going to find it in a big store anywhere. Usually, you're going to have to go online. System 76, Dell, I guess ships a few, you know, but really, there's just not that many options for us as far as pre-installed Linux. So,
yeah, and even System 76 has got a limited availability on some of that too. So, you know, their production runs are kind of small, if you will, and
they're quite expensive.
They are. I mean, it's good stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's just
Yeah, System 76 is actually doing some new stuff over at their website. I saw the other day that they're not even offering desktops anymore. They're only selling laptops. Yeah, they're about to. Yeah, looks like they're going to relaunch a new line, I guess, of desktops. They're calling it open hardware too. I'm not exactly sure how open that hardware is going to be.
They're probably using some open BIOS like Tiana Core or something like that, and probably using mostly like AMD probably.
Right. If you click that link in the chat there, the desktop page for System 76 at the top, it says the open hardware computer is coming. It doesn't really give me any details about what that is. It just says it's coming. Well, I would like to know more about it.
Knowing the trends in those things, I'm pretty sure it's going to be something core boot related. With like an open, because System 76 in interviews has historically hated the BIOS vendors, found them buggy, bloated, and just really awful to work with, and they have been fans of core boot. So I assume that the open hardware part refers not so much to the infrastructure, maybe an open motherboard scheme or something like that, not open processors. I just don't see that happen.
Yeah. And more
like open BIOS, core boot, maybe a schematic for as many parts as they can.
And people in the chat are also speculating open hardware. Does that mean RISC V? I mean, what exactly are they putting in these things, or will put when they offer them? Who knows?
Closest thing on the graphics card market currently on a big scale is AMD, since they open source there.
Well, you know, that's the thing. I don't think they offered any AMD GPUs on any of the System 76 machines before. They always used NVIDIA, so are they going to do something other than NVIDIA for a graphics card?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think AMD on these new machines is gonna be amazing.
Yep. We'll see. I'm interested in
Linux,
what they
AMD is quite good. I must say the Vega card is really good, but it runs really hot, so.
Yeah, but still, the price on those Vega cards for what you're getting compared to the
insane.
for comparing to what NVIDIA does. I mean, NVIDIA, you have to install proprietary drivers, where AMD is open sourced and built into the kernel. But still, the NVIDIA cards, you know, dollar for dollar, are still better. You know.
Yeah, performance wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the amount of headaches that the AMD card saves me on KDE is worth the price tag, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not...
I gotta open the museum up, so I'm gonna drop out. Talk to you guys next week, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for stopping by, Chris. I'm actually going to be killing the stream here in about 5 more minutes, so come hang out with us again next Sunday if we have one of these.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I came at the wrong time. Yeah.
That's usually my excuse.
No.
Yeah.
That's usually the way I do it too. I often join people's streams as the chat is telling everybody bye. It's like, okay, well.
You know,
guess-
the reason I'm late is because I got on and I had trouble with my internet connection, so I spent the whole hour just trying to troubleshoot it, and I'm not sure what's going on with it. I think maybe I connected maybe it's just the lower local power outage or internet trouble with the wires here, or maybe I overloaded the router because I had just plugged in the Raspberry Pi. Maybe that caused some kind of problem, but whatever. It kind of sucks because I really like these streams and they're very interesting. And it's also my birthday, so.
No, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Many happy birthday.
It's a really crappy way to spend your birthday. On technical support.
It always is when you have computer problems. I've done that, joining other people's streams. I know they're having a stream at a certain time, and maybe they expect me to join, and I have problems with my computer, or I can't even join, or I join, but audio's not working, video's not working. I have to boot into a different machine, or even on my phone sometimes.
Guys, I have a special milestone for us today. No pulse audio issues.
Well, you know what? That is, everybody that joined had no audio problems. It's getting better.
Even for me.
If I still have an offer for you, DT.
Yeah.
Do you want a sneak peek to try out my Pulse audio config file before I actually upload it on GitHub? Just like Tux Digital, so you can give me some feedback if it's missing anything or if you like it.
No. I'll check it out with the rest of the public on GitHub. Just let us all know. How are you going to announce that to the world? How will we figure out where your GitHub is located? Or you
when I'm ready, I'll probably just announce it here.
Okay, that would be fine.
No, that'd be cool. An exclusive.
Yeah. Breaking news.
But yeah, if you want somebody to work with your post audio config, Michael over at Tux Digital, he'll give you some good advice on that.
He already has it, so he can try it out for himself because he got a new microphone and he's like, the volume is a little too low, the volume is a little bit too loud, there's noise, and my config actually takes care of all of that, at least it attempts to. Yeah. So I'm hoping he gets good results with it.
Yeah, I hope so too.
What kind of configuration is it? Is it like a program or just a text file devolved?
It's just a text file that goes in your Pulse audio config directory, and it will add multiple virtual microphones, one for your application routing, one for the microphone routing, and one that does both at the same time, so you can send music out to other people. You can record volume of applications exactly at the same volume, so it can replace desktop audio while still simultaneously recording them two separate files if you want. It does audio normalization for those inputs as well, including the microphone and applications that you send over. So the microphone volume that you hear right now is actually being done by the config. It's not set by me.
Nice.
Hello?
Cool. Yeah.
No, okay. Seems cool.
And to top that all off, I do have a virtual microphone interface, so you can toggle on hearing your own microphone in your own headset if you desire to.
Nice.
Yeah, I managed to do that for me.
Yeah.
I would just have a front end for whole
No, I'm just on something.
like a program front end.
Wow. That's like the slow motion effect out of the Matrix movies there.
I heard something front end. It's actually not gonna ever be done. It's just a script because it integrates into my KDE volume settings pretty naturally because it's still Pulse audio.
I'll try it, Hanky, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I can send it to you on Discord if you want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just wait for the GitHub version.
Compared to what it is now, one of the changes that will be done still is that I have to rename the extremely long entire sentence of input names to something proper. Because now it's like LDSPA plugin noise cancellation, on LDSPA plugin SC1, on LDSPA plugin compressor, on LDSPA normalization, on virtual mic in. And that stuff just needs to be virtual mic in. So
human readable.
It is human readable, it's just long.
Well, guys, we have come to the end of the stream. It is noon now. We've been streaming for about 2 hours, so let's let everybody get a last word in before we go. Climby, anything you want to share with us on our way out?
Really enjoyed the stream as always. Really enjoyed the conversations, the topics we talked about. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Appreciate it. Dan, last word, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it has been a good time. Definitely enjoyed it. Look forward to the next one.
Yep. We'll try to do it again next week, assuming nothing comes up. Paul, last words.
Well, as usual, awesome stream. I'm sure we all appreciate you taking time from your vacation to spend a couple hours with us.
Yeah, but this was relaxing. This wasn't work. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah, no editing or anything involved in this. And I really like that T-shirt, Paul. Is that Ice Age? The squirrel from Ice Age?
Yes.
Yeah, very cool.
Floyd Ice Age shirt.
Very cool. All right.
But yeah,
Big
thank you very much. For
all right, thanks, Paul.
Vacation time.
Big Pod, last word.
Future self
You've touched the Matrix mirror again.
One day I'm gonna have
Glitching the Matrix.
channel too.
You know what it
So
was?
one day, check me out. One day. That means it could be tomorrow. It could be 10 years from now.
We were talking about nobody had any audio problems, and we jinxed it.
Technically, it's a bandwidth problem, not an audio problem.
Yeah.
He gets the pass on that one.
Jinx us, people.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Big Pod.
Probably water.
Yeah. All right, Riggy, last words.
Oh, this has been a good chat. Thanks for having me. Everybody in the comments section, smash that like button. Support everybody here.
All right.
Absolutely, guys.
Present arms.
Yeah, been a brilliant stream. I've enjoyed it. I did have an email actually on Friday, and it was a lady saying that they're switching a lot of disadvantaged kids, those with disabilities and businesses to my distro, and I'm just a happy man over that.
Yeah. It makes sense because your distro would be perfect on older hardware. A lot of schools have machines that are just ancient that won't really run. Yeah, so that is actually a great way to recycle some of these machines. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what she's doing. I was well happy over it. She has a choice of all these different distros that do run Trinity. She's a Trinity fan as a desktop.
Awesome.
As a chosen wonderful, fantastic.
Awesome.
So anyway, thank you for the stream, Derek. It's been brilliant. It's been nice being here. And
Right,
everybody
thanks.
in the chat there, smash that like button. I don't know why there was 2 thumbs down, but there you go. It's all positive.
All right, Hinky, last word, sir.
I want to thank everyone for being on the stream. It's been fun like always. I'm not going to tell everyone to click the like button because then they unlike again. So I'm not going to make that mistake. But I do challenge T to read out his entire Patreon list in one breath again.
You know what? I stopped that around the time it got to about 50 names because it got unmanageable. and it's like 70 names now. Yeah, but it's really long. It's getting.
Yeah.
But you know what? For one time for Hinky, we will. Silent Robot. Last words, sir.
As always, thank you for having me on. Great
right.
content, great company. Love to do it again.
All right, appreciate that. And Christopher, last words, sir.
Well, thanks for having me for the few seconds at the beginning and like the last 20 minutes of the stream. Anybody who has I would suggest anybody who has a YouTube page that any of the commenters who were here that have a YouTube, they should probably put a comment linking them to their page so people can go see where they are.
That's a good point. People often ask about, the people on these streams, do they have a channel of their own? You can't post a link unfortunately, in the chat unless you're a moderator. But what you can do is anybody that wants to let everybody know about a channel, just mention it in the chat stream. And what you do is you click their name, or actually, is it the little dots next to their name on the left? And go to channel.
Three dots.
Yeah. Because Google does not like, or YouTube doesn't like people being able to post links in the chat by default. So.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, that could cause a lot of problems if they allowed it.
Yeah. I actually found out why my network is bad. Somebody unplugged my good Wi-Fi hotspot, so it's using the one in the lower floor.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks, guys. This was fun.
Solved.
Yeah.
Mystery solved. Okay, bye.
Well, let me do my last word for Hinky here, since he asked for it. All right. This show was made possible by Ansem, Carlos, David, Leo, Rob, A.K., Alex, Tony, Bart, Benjamin, Ben, Bill, Bruno, Brian, Avon, Christian, Chuck, Climby, Dan, the other Dan, Daniel, David, the other David, Dennis, Dirk, Eduardo, Francisco, Humate, Interceptor, Jake, Jason, John, Carl, Katrina, Kurt, Linux 3D, Linux Rocks, Marcus, the other Marcus, Matt, the other Matt, Mateo, Matthias, Michael, the other Michael, Mike, Mr. GFY, Mr. Neely Pops, Murray, Nitrix, Keith, Paul, Present Arms, Richard, Robert, Rob, Ron, Silvio, Silent, Steve, the other Steve, another Steve, so many Steves, Swami, Tiedemann, Troy, Voislav, Tubella, John, you guys rock. All right. Peace, guys.
All right.
Have a good day.
Works again for me.
Here, guys.
All right.